Namaskar and warm greetings to everyone who have joined us from around the globe. Welcome to this 3-day virtual Global Law School Summit on the present and future of global legal education, organized by the Jindal Global Law School, OP Jindal Global University. I'm your host, Dr. Tanushree Sharma, Professor and Senior Additional Registrar, leading you through the inaugural ceremony of this summit. To initiate this event, I'm very pleased to invite the truly visionary and exemplary leader, the founding Vice Chancellor of OP Jindal Global University and founding Dean of Jindal Global Law School, Professor Dr. C. Raj Kumar, to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Thank you very much, Tanushree. Very good morning to all our friends in India, but good afternoon and good evening, and maybe late in the evening for our friends in the US. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. Let me begin by extending a warm welcome to Her Excellency, the Honorable Margaret Beazley, former President, New South Wales Court of Appeal, and the Governor of the State of New South Wales, Australia. Honorable Miss Justice Gita Mittal, former Chief Justice, High Court of Jammu and Kashmir, India. I also want to, at this moment, express the regret that we have received from the Honorable Union Minister for Law and Justice, Shri Kiran Rijiju. Since the Parliament is in session, he is not able to join us on this occasion. I also want to recognize the presence of my colleagues, Professor Dr. Sreejith, Executive Dean of Jindal Global Law School, Professor Dabiru, Sridhar Patnaik, Registrar of OP Jindal Global University, and of course, my distinguished colleague, Professor Tanushree Sharma, Senior Additional Registrar of OP Jindal Global University. I have great pleasure in welcoming all of you today to the first of its kind, the Global Law School Summit, organized by Jindal Global Law School and OP Jindal Global University on the theme, the present and future of global legal education. I am particularly grateful to Honorable Miss Justice Gita Mittal, former Chief Justice, and Her Excellency, the Honorable Margaret Beazley, former President of New South Wales Court of Appeal and Governor of NSW, for taking the time out of their busy schedules to be here with us and to significantly elevate the impact of the summit. As we enter a post-pandemic world, the demands of justice will not only expand, but also be more complex than ever before. It is very important for leaders of legal education from across the globe to come together to envisage the present and future of global legal education that will impact the future of students, academics, lawyers, lawmakers, parliamentarians, and indeed nations. Jindal Global Law School has always been committed to creating important and transformative dialogues with a global perspective. Thus, the Global Law School Summit has been conceptualized to review the state of law and society in globalizing conditions within an analytical framework, global legal education. This has the scope for critiquing, contemplating, and conceiving some of the most critical ideas that are going to shape the future. We are truly grateful to have stalwarts and leaders from all spheres of the world of law with us at this summit. I am delighted to share with you that this extraordinary moment when we will have leadership representing over 100 law schools from around the world during this summit. I am deeply humbled that 150 plus thought leaders from 6 continents and over 35 countries who will be with us across the next 3 days. The esteemed gathering of distinguished speakers includes over 100 vice chancellors, current and former deans, principals, heads, directors, and other senior leaders of law schools and members of the judiciary, including 10 judges and law firm partners. I am grateful to all of them for taking the time out to join us across 21 thematic sessions, 8 special dialogues, 2 colloquiums, and 3 keynote addresses to create a global reimagination for law schools. This also includes keynote and special addresses by Mr. Mohit Saraf, founder and managing partner Saraf and Partners, Mr. Cyril Shroff, Managing Partner, Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, Ms. Pallavi Shroff, Managing Partner, Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas, Mr. Nishit Desai, founder of Nishit Desai Associates. Also, we have partners from Herbert Smith and other distinguished law firms in India and abroad. We're also very fortunate that we will be having Mr. Tushar Mehta, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, and the Solicitor General of India, and Dr. Sasmit Patra, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, and member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Law and Justice, India, at our valedictory session. The summit is indeed one of its kind, with thematic sessions spread across the entire gamut of issues that are confronting the world of legal education and will indeed shape the future of law schools. The sheer diversity of our distinguished speakers from around the world, combined with the breadth and depth of the intellectually engaging thematic sessions represented by the most outstanding thinkers in legal academia, legal profession, corporate legal practice, judiciary from around the world, will hopefully make this a truly engaging summit for all of us, leading to a global perspective for the future of legal education, for the future of rule of law, and for future of our efforts to promote access to justice. The current pandemic has demonstrated that we must always be prepared for the unknown, and therefore we must take this opportunity in the next few days to find ways to collaborate on a common platform and find a collective conscience to rise above the pandemic and to transform the future of legal education globally. It is our responsibility to recognize that the future of legal education will shape the future of justice systems around the world. It will provide hope and conscience for a number of people around the world who are still continuing to struggle and seek justice from their own situations. I am indeed looking forward to the 3 days of intellectual deliberations with global leaders of legal education to discuss the present and future of global legal education. Once again, let me take this opportunity to thank and appreciate the extraordinary efforts that have been put by my colleagues. I want to singularly take at this moment to thank my very distinguished colleague, Professor S.G. Sreejith, who along with his assistant and associate deans and other faculty members conceived the conceptual framework of this conference. I want to thank my colleagues in my office, Mr. Abhinav Madan, Mr. Karan Anand, and my staff, including my Chief of Staff, Neha Gupta, for their effort for the last several weeks and months to ensure that the conference happens in a smooth manner. I also want to recognize the fact that this effort that Jindal Global Law School and OP Jindal Global University has undertaken will be an ongoing effort to promote not only a global dialogue among legal educators, judges, lawyers, and legal professionals around the world, but also to create a deeper sense of conscience about our own roles and responsibilities as educators and thought leaders. There is no better time than the times that we are living in today to engage in this dialogue. And it is an opportunity that this platform has provided for us to continue this effort on a year-to-year basis. I'm grateful to each one of you who have joined in this effort and to be part of this summit. Thank you very much.
Taking the proceedings further, I'm very happy to bring in the Executive Dean of Jindal Global Law School, Professor Dr. S.G. Sreejith, to kindly introduce the theme of this 3-day-long Global Law Schools Summit. Over to you, Professor Sreejith.
Thank you, Professor Tanushree. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who are connected to us from different locations and time zones. Welcome everyone to the Global Law School Summit 2021. After the last year's conference on reimagining and transforming the future of law schools and legal education, JGLS hereby organizes the Global Law School Summit themed the present and future of global legal education. Mapping the prospects of and challenges to legal education in the global world, we realize that globalization gets the best perspective when it's viewed temporally. This viewing globalization as a time-space phenomenon, we understood that it has led us to a hitherto unknown experience of time, a time characterized by uncertainty, unpredictability, and indeterminacy. The confusion caused by the fall of modernity and the rise of a global society was felt most badly and deeply by thought-based disciplines. The irrelevance of historical memory and the weight and coherence associated with such memories had the disciplines struggling to hold together, as human condition, as it has been portrayed in historical narratives, was no longer believed. Sociology, economics, anthropology, history, psychology, and any discipline you name from the time, without exception, the epistemic communities therein sensed a rupture, a fall of truth, a loss of coherence, fragmentation, and many unknown impressions. There was a weariness all around, as Nietzsche sensed, all is alike. Nothing is worthwhile. The world is without meaning. Knowledge strangles. This caused anxiety all around. The predominant mood then at the globalizing moment was gloom, despair, nihilism, melancholy, and ambivalence. But soon, the initial dysphoria had given way to a hopefulness that ignited a renewalist urge. Those outstanding and amazing collective efforts of society have been chronicled and conceptualized under the nascent discipline global legal studies, and particularly of law under global legal studies. This focus, we understood, would help us better understand the life in law after the fall of modernity and the rebuilding of the fallen modernity into the global society. Accordingly, this summit aims to review the state of law in globalizing conditions under the analytical framework global legal studies that has the scope for critiquing, contemplating, and conceiving the same. Broadly, the summit poses the following 5 questions. Question 1, as late modernity in all its complexities has set in as a reality, what are the types and values of resilience adopted by the law schools? Question 2, what is the scope of global legal studies in establishing a social order in late modernity? Question 3, how have law and legal systems been grappling with the question of the loss of objectivity both within legal structures and outside of it in society? Question 4, as the identities associated with law in its modernist imaginations collapsed, have there been alternative imaginations in global legal studies for recreating identities? And question number 5, how can legal education and legal profession be reorganized in the wake of these temporal transformations? We decided to get informed about the struggles during the early days of the globalization, other challenges including the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic and the stories of outstanding disciplinary renewalism and rebuilding. Our focus is on law schools, primarily is governance and administration. But we'll also hear experiences of particular disciplinary reorganization. We have tales from constitutional law, international law, commercial law, family law, property law, human rights law, and environmental law. Then we'll hear tales of reimagining methods and materials of law, black letter law, heterodoxy, feminism, gender, critique, legal clinics, law journals, research, and pedagogy. Since global is a new time space, professional identity too is a polemic component, which cannot be ignored from these conversations. Therefore, we included in the conference questions relating to the rediscovery of global identity of legal professionals, global law dean, global law teacher, global judge, and global lawyers. We sincerely hope that the summit will yield best results, not only in terms of the tangible intellectual outcomes, but in terms of giving us the necessary hope and the courage to fight against the uncertainties of the global. We humbly submit this conference to the legal community and welcome everyone to the Global Law Schools Summit, organized by Jindal Global Law School and OP Jindal Global University. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sreejith, for so vividly introducing the theme of this summit that promises to bring together the galaxy of stellar speakers to discuss and deliberate on topical issues in legal education. At this point, it is with immense pleasure I welcome and introduce our guest of honor and the first distinguished speaker for the day, Honorable Ms. Justice Gita Mittal. Justice Mittal, an alumnus of Lady Irving School and Lady Shri Ram College for Women, earned her degree in law from Faculty of Law, Delhi University. Her legal and judicial career dates to 1981. After serving as a judge and acting Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court, she was appointed the Chief Justice of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court in August 2018, having served as the first woman Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court. Justice Gita Mittal is also the first woman chairperson of Broadcasting Content Complaints Council. Justice Mittal received the Distinguished Alumna Award in 2008 from the Vice President of India, awarded by the Lady Shri Ram College for Women. In 2018, President Ramnath Kovind awarded Justice Gita Mittal with the Nari Shakti Puruskar, India's highest civilian honor for women. I would like to request Justice Mittal to kindly deliver the special address, please.
Thank you, Tanushree. My namaskar, assalamu alaikum salam, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the learned friends from across the globe who have joined this very, very important summit. The Global Law School Summit on the Present and Future of Global Legal Education, organized by the O.P. Jindal Global University, is yet another initiative of Professor Raj Kumar and the O.P. Jindal Global University to address imperative issues in the context of global legal education. I therefore would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the university as well as the Jindal Global Law School for organizing the present 3-day session on such an important and pertinent topic. I also wish to offer felicitations to Jindal Global Law School for being ranked in India's #1 law school and 76th in the world by the QS World University Rankings by subject. Certainly a tremendous achievement in the young life that Jindal Global University and Law School have had till date. Today, I will speak about India and its globalization of legal education, globalization and the changing dimensions of the Indian economy and polity have resulted in new challenges concerning governance for the country in general, for national educational institutions in particular. More recently, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought about a drastic change to how education is imparted, bringing along with it a new set of challenges. Globalization has had profound effects on the future of higher education in every discipline. It exposes Indian institutions to the competition posed by international institutions, attracting Indian students for educational opportunities abroad. Central issues for formulating necessary policies for higher education are, firstly, creating a better research environment and revamping the modes of learning to make them more research and analysis oriented. Then developing sound infrastructure, which includes not only the proliferation of world-class campuses, but also expansion of libraries and investing in global research databases. Certainly the example of Jindal Global Law School is a very, very important case in hand. Then formulating very good governance models, engaging in capacity building by creating better career opportunities and formulating new paths to their realization, promoting global standards of academia and scholarship by creating avenues for the professional advancement of Indian academics. Each of us differs in the understanding of the phrase global standard. In a broad sense, globalization would entail the meeting of minds on a worldwide platform. What does it mean to be truly global? Does it mean having infrastructure and resources of global standard, or is it having operational standards similar to the global standard? What does the global standard even mean? Is it a meeting of minds between different nations to arrive at a common denominator, or merely a yearning to aspire to the systems of the developed countries in the West? There can be no absolute answer to these issues. I'm sure the panelists in this important summit would be able to discuss and identify not only the challenges surrounding the globalization of legal education, but also the various avenues for advancement. I would just like to point out that the timing of this event is so critical and crucial because in the 2 years, 2.5 years of the pandemic, I had extensive opportunity to engage with young law students, and I saw the uncertainty and the tension that these students were feeling, unsure of their future, students of law schools, unsure of the future, not knowing how they would proceed in the legal profession, especially litigating, people who wanted to litigate, being unsure of the manner in which procedures and methods would evolve in the courts. The rule of law remains the single most important challenge faced by developing democracies in India today. Like India today, the role of law schools and capacity building in the domestic legal fraternity is central to the future of globalized legal education and the development of legal knowledge and scholarship in India. The importance of a strong foundational legal education and formalization of the commitment towards upholding the rule of law at the law school level itself cannot be sufficiently emphasized. Since the development of a knowledge economy remains an important goal of both developed and developing countries, establishing educational institutes of global excellence, including in legal education, has become the priority of developing countries. India has yet to achieve these priorities. The National Education Policy 2020 has made a number of useful and very important recommendations which deserve serious and urgent attention. The amalgamation and the utilization of foreign talent, especially by the Jindal University, is actually a front runner in setting a path for the manner in which global practices and global, good results can be imbibed and absorbed in a university and a law school in India. India is also at a point where, to promote internationalization of education, it has to establish and nurture the appropriate regulatory bodies who would be well equipped to encourage and sustain the proliferation of universities that provide quality education, even in the private sector, again, such as the OP Jindal Global University. Additionally, there is a need for innovation and promotion of collaborations and interactions amongst universities from different jurisdictions. More events as the present on different topics and different areas, I think, would lead a long way in achieving these goals. Undoubtedly, development of scholarship has to be emphasized as a core mission of global legal education to ensure institutional excellence. Research has to be made a priority so that the creation of knowledge becomes the fundamental objective of higher education. Thus, globalization of legal education has to include a global curriculum, a global faculty, global degrees, and certainly very extensive global interactions. With voluminous increase in cross-border transactions, India, by virtue of its economic importance, is slowly emerging as a melting pot of many crucial legal issues. So far as law is concerned, be it the contemporary intellectual property, information technology debates, environment or trade-related issues, it is clear that India has a major role to play in structuring and restructuring policy and regulatory issues at an international level. We are seeing the way arbitration and mediation, alternate dispute resolution systems are evolving and padding out, and how India is moving leaps and bounds in imbibing international best practices. What are the immediate targets that legal education, which meets global standards, should try to achieve? What should be the methods adopted in this regard? One may try to emulate standards and learn from institutions that have already experienced the challenges and have placed themselves in the ranks of institutions of repute worldwide. For instance, I would just like to point out a couple of examples. In the field of civil and commercial law practice, corporate law, real estate, tax, business litigation, many areas of government regulation, and aspects of non-profit representation, pro bono lawyering, lawyers need to acquire skills in 3 areas: basic analytics, that would include accounting, finance, and economics, and statistics, which is not dispensed with so far in law schools, I think, and appreciation of transactions and relevant fields of law. which has to be pursued more vigorously, in my view. At the Harvard Law School, while most courses fall in the latter area, its faculty now incorporates the former two areas in teaching in each subject. This may not be possible for all law schools to achieve. Drexel's Earl Mack School of Law, now known as Thomas R. Klein School of Law, is an example of a new law school. I understand that from its inception in 2006, Drexel takes seriously its challenge to offer legal education that offers a rigorous foundation in legal analysis and traditional legal doctrine while incorporating a greater exposure to writing, skill training, and experiential learning. It has established a keystone course, Law and Finance of Transactional Lawyering. To the best of my information, appreciation of transactions or experiential learning is absent in legal education in India. So is legal analysis. We do not thus have the basic analytics course. The goal of clinical courses is misunderstood to provide a transitional experience bridging law school and practice. The goal should be less so and be to bridge doctrine and traditional legal analysis with experiential learning. Harvard's foundation course, Corporations, takes the student through the full spectrum of policy perspectives and economic efficiency. In fact, Drexel's transactional learning course would find a perfect match with the prerequisite course, such as Harvard's Corporations. While Drexel has developed a model teaching of transactional lawyering, Harvard incorporates it in teaching all courses in the business law stream. At Harvard, for decades, corporation, taken by many students, whether interested in pursuing a career in business law or not, is the base on which all advanced corporate and related courses build, and is a prerequisite or recommended course in related areas. A person who has taught this course or has studied it can best deliver its content. The gurus in this course, of course, are Professor Clark, Professor Crackman. Professor Clark has been the most successful dean at the Harvard Law School. Both lead the field worldwide, and their books have formed part of core reading material for decades. Legal education in India primarily teaches rules. Debating the rules from an economic efficiency or policy perspective is extremely rare. The further steps of analytics and transactional lawyering, which itself has come to be law teaching in the US only in the past few years, is almost non-existent in India. I would also like to point out the valuable role that law schools would play in creating, good judges and good judging. If such courses were incorporated and we were to imbibe more from the experiences abroad. We are all products of the judges. When I say we are the products of the experience and the education that they have had. And if more law students are taught to analyze, to learn about appreciation of transactions and greater experiential learning, we would have it would be of extremely valuable contribution to the creation of an extremely vibrant and responsive judiciary, especially in the field of economics, taxation, revenue, and also the very, very contemporary areas of intellectual property, as well as intellectual information technology. So how do you bridge the gaps? Law schools in their own ways promote excellence in legal education and research, particularly by attracting some of the brightest students to consider law as a preferred career option. But these schools still face a significant challenge in attracting faculty members who are top researchers in the field of law and who can combine sound teaching methods with established track records of research. The top law schools in the country are considered top law schools not because they have stellar faculty or world-class infrastructure, but rather due to the success of their alumni. Law schools and academics in India greatly need to develop an institutional culture that promotes and encourages research that has the capacity to foster many changes in society and mindsets. Some of the hurdles which come in the way of this development, I would like to enumerate very briefly. The first is developing physical infrastructure and financial resources. The lack of financial aid coupled with inefficient physical infrastructure largely contributes to the gap. The second would be developing philanthropic initiatives. Legal education in India by and large remains a state-sponsored endeavor or an unimpressive commercial enterprise devoid of high academic standards. Philanthropy in legal education is rare. There is an urgent need for encouraging, I'm using a loose term, philanthropic initiatives that promote excellence in legal education and research in the country. Jindal is a case in hand of a wonderful such philanthropic initiative by one of the largest corporate houses in India. Then hiring good teachers and researchers, a huge hurdle. The present system does not sufficiently recognize this as a key problem with regard to legal education, especially if it has to meet global standards. Lack of faculty members who are good teachers as well as sound researchers. We need to identify talent amongst youngsters, young alumni, young lawyers, so that they can be encouraged to consider academia as a very, very vibrant career option. There's a desperate need to incentivize academia and make it a lucrative career option for law graduates. It is tragic that teachers and professors in most schools, especially law schools, are grossly underpaid and are given no incentives by universities to undertake academic research projects and collaborations in addition to their teaching duties. I understand that Professor Raj Kumar is a pioneer, a leader in an exception to such incentivization. And perhaps that is a reason that the Jindal Law School has achieved the heights that it has. The fourth hurdle has been research on law and justice. Law schools in India need to construct a sound institutional foundation on the basis of which intellectual and scholarly abilities of legal scholars can be actively promoted. Thus, the role of law schools in India is paramount in forging changes in the traditions of the legal profession. With the mushrooming of law schools across the country and more law graduates entering the workforce every year, it is necessary and imperative to incentivize more lawyers to work for the sake of upholding justice and the rule of law in India. All legal institutional, judicial and constitutional measures to ensure the rule of law should be oriented in inculcating a respect for law on the basis of the belief that it will be enforced equally and fairly. Legal education singularly has the most important role to play in the establishment of a law-abiding society. The day that law schools understand this and recognize this and make it their mission, certainly we would have achieved peace in the community, not only in the immediate community, but I think in the global community. And this is where global law schools can, legal education on a global basis, extensive international exchanges, in invitation and request to faculty from other jurisdictions and other countries to teach at our institutions in India would contribute greatly. In the recent past, I'll just share a small example. I have had opportunity to be training judges from different countries. I have been working with Bhutan judges on ethics, analyzing, looking at their statutory provisions. I've learned a lot as to what can be examples that we can absorb in India from extremely pertinent, extremely well thought out statutory provisions that are in existence in a small jurisdiction like Bhutan. I've been doing mediation training with judges. We've trained almost 300 judges from Bangladesh repeatedly in the aspect of alternate dispute resolution. I met judges from Sri Lanka on different subjects, on core legal principles in civil law and judicial ethics, and also engage extensively with I've engaged with other judges from Nepal, etc. It was my experience that sharing even the jurisprudence which has evolved was such a learning experience for me as a resource person during these trainings, that sharing of knowledge, expertise, and experience amongst law schools can contribute so much. Why is it that developed countries cannot learn, say, for instance, in areas of, say, environmental law from the experience of developing countries? Perhaps we would create citizens who would be not only law students and law experts who would be more responsive to the imperative needs of global warming if we were able to share more experiences and more legal knowledge, and lead to a very, very responsive community, responsive to the needs of not only law and justice, but to the environment and gender and all other relevant issues. Some of the important organizations involved in responding to the challenges of developing a knowledge economy and seeking this transition in higher education are the University Grants Commission, Ministry of Education, Union Ministry of Law and Justice, Bar Council of India, and the Niti Aayog. Each of these organizations has its own perspectives on what ought to be the future of higher education. There is a need for consensus building and closer interaction, and perhaps joining such organizations in deliberations as yours today would contribute a long way in doing this. In our efforts to materialize future objectives, a great deal of responsibility is bestowed on the legal fraternity to familiarize ourselves with the global challenges and responsibilities. We have to look for means and measures to ensure inclusion in the legal profession, preventing biases, prejudices, and discriminatory practices in the legal system to incorporate a greater sense of worldwide equality. While developing institutions fostering quality global education, we must also assess the role, methodology, and professionalism and contribution of foreign law firms. The approach identified has to be balanced, taking into consideration the domestic requirements. The fact that you have thought out, the organizers of this conference have thought out to join not only institutions, legal firms of tremendous repute from India, but also internationally, shows that you are already thinking of these lines. And I congratulate Professor Raj Kumar and his entire team for this extremely sensitive and forward-looking initiative. The OP Jindal Global University aspires to meet the several imperatives flagged by me today. It has enabled ensuring production of a body of legal experts who leave the institution armed not only with the best legal skills, but sensitization to the needs of communities, without biases of any kind, ready to meet all challenges, including those posed by the legal profession in this era of globalization, including ingrained sensitivity to the rights of marginalized groups of communities and breaking of gender and caste barriers. With its multi-speciality institutions, Jindal promotes the idea and possibility of the future legal education dialogue. I am sure with the dynamism of its Vice Chancellor and the valuable contribution of the faculty and the staff at the OP Jindal Global University, the aimed objectives are not far from being achieved. To conclude, law undoubtedly has a global language as well as content. The principles are the same. Students in India, so as to develop into legal practitioners who meet international levels, deserve to receive a quality education of global standards, which I hope this conference will lay down. Moreover, the legal fraternity as a whole stands to benefit from imparting holistic legal education, which encourages strong academic participation and knowledge building right from the law school level. Therefore, curriculum, content, methodology, faculty development, as well as the institutional culture has to be developed for the benefit of the students of today, who will be the global leaders in the legal profession of tomorrow. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on this in this very, very important conference. I wish you good luck in your deliberations and look forward to the recommendations which will follow. Thank you.
Indeed, development of scholarship has to be pursued as a core mission to achieve excellence in legal education. Many thanks, Justice Ms. Mittal, for your kind words, for your thought-provoking reflections, your enriching insights, and sharing with the audience the global best practices in legal education. Many thanks once again. Moving right along, it's my proud privilege to welcome and introduce our next most distinguished guest of honor, Her Excellency Honorable Margaret Beazley, an Australian jurist who is the 39th and current Governor of New South Wales. Honorable Ms. Beazley was the President of the New South Wales Court of Appeal, the first woman to hold the office from 2013 until February 2019. Appointed Queen's Counsel in 1989, in 1993, she was made a judge of the Federal Court of Australia, the first woman to sit exclusively in that court. Honorable Ms. Beazley has been described as a fierce advocate for women in the legal profession, and in 2006 was designated an Officer of the Order of Australia for her service to the judiciary and the law, particularly through contributions to professional and ethical standards, to the advancement of women in the legal profession and the community. She was made a Companion of the Order of Australia in the Australia Day Honours list on 26 January 2020 for eminent service to the people of New South Wales, particularly through leadership roles in judiciary and as a mentor of young women lawyers. Her Excellency brings her deep commitment to education, youth leadership, human rights, and social justice to the role in service of the people of New South Wales. May I please invite Honorable Ms. Beazley to kindly deliver the keynote address.
Thank you, Tanushree, and thank you all, and especially Professor Kumar, for this invitation of being a guest of honour at the inaugural session of what has already been described as a most important and timely conference. And it is wonderful to share this platform with my friend, the Honourable Ms. Justice Gita Mittal. I often like to ask young lawyers, why is it that scientists are awarded Nobel Prizes, but lawyers attain notoriety? There are likely to be multiple answers to this not entirely rhetorical question, although I suspect those answers will have an underlying theme. Scientists are innovators. They discover breakthroughs and make breakthroughs in existing knowledge. Law, by its nature, tends to follow what has already occurred in the world. And today, we live in a world which is a disrupted world, a world which simultaneously globalizes and fractures, where institutions are both the mainstay of the stable order of society, but which are also derided for their ineffectiveness, where global communication is swift and technology is unstoppable, but where humans and drugs are traded on the dark web using this very same technology. Indeed, where the state also uses this very same technology, and on occasions wrongfully, for example, as has occurred here in Australia, to claim overpayment of social security benefits, or to unlawfully issue garnishee orders to recover unpaid fines. It's a world where idealism abounds, but the core aspect of a profession, and here I'm speaking of the legal profession, the core aspect being that of service, has become in many respects subservient to the business model of legal practice. It is why, so often in discussion sessions with young law students, whom one would have thought and had hoped had been properly tutored, at least for the occasion, I am asked questions about the experiences I have had in the legal industry, not in the profession of the law. It's a world where legal practice, which is a core component of the administration of justice, must nonetheless respond to the demands of business and clients who too frequently will not share the same ethical values that should be endemic to the practice of law. This is the world in which you, the global law schools, must fashion the young lawyer to have the legal expertise, the business acuity, and the ethical grounding, not only to survive, but to thrive, so that it can be said that the legal profession continues to be the mainstay of a desire of a stable society in which we all desire to live. In short, I think this is a challenge. There is no easy answers, nor is there any one model which is likely to best serve this purpose. However, just as there was likely to be a common theme to the answers given to my Nobel Prize question, there are a number of common considerations which are likely to lead to good outcomes. For my part, not being an educator, but having been a practitioner and a judge, and I have to admit, for something close to half a century, I would like to suggest that the following matters may be relevant to the discussions and deliberations over the course of the next few days. First, I cannot conceive of a law school that does not teach the basic principles of law. In Australia, there is a requirement that every lawyer be tutored in what we call here the priestly 11. 11 subjects which have been determined to be essential competencies for practice as a lawyer. Those subjects are administrative law, civil procedure, company or corporations law, it's termed variously in different institutions, contracts, criminal law and procedure, equity, including trusts, ethics and professional responsibility, evidence, constitutional law, property and torts. They are the key competencies. Now, it might be thought that the criminal lawyer is unlikely to ever need to delve into the depths of corporations law or trusts. However, a moment's reflection will debunk that type of thinking. Whilst there are still many petty criminals in our society, crime is increasingly hidden behind or under trust and corporate structures. Criminal and terrorist organisations were the very early users of blockchain technology. Conversely, the corporate lawyer may have a client charged with white-collar crime. And these are only just two and fairly obvious examples of many where there is a crossover between what would seem to be disparate strands of law. There has been much criticism directed at the priestly 11 in the last decade here in Australia, although on a careful analysis, the criticism is not so much as to the need to teach basic legal principle, but on the method in which that is taught. The concern is that the study of specific subjects in isolation from others silos the student's legal thinking and fails to develop a student's understanding of the application of the law, which indeed needs additional skills. This has led one leading law school to introduce a transactional law program and another to introduce conceptual courses by teaching principles common to private law subjects such as contract law, property and equity, rather than teaching them in a silo or individual subject manner. The second common matter I think we can think about is this. There is now a realization that the way the world thinks and functions has changed, and changed dramatically. Thus, at the Future of Legal Education and Training Conference, which was held in London in 2019, a number of themes emerged, and they included these. The need for law to embrace design thinking, given the growing intersection between design, law, and technology. The use of technology in promoting access to justice. And the fact that lawyers of the future will require multidisciplinary skills, or at least have an understanding of multidisciplinary skills, so as to be able to assess the need for other skills, particularly technological skills, as they go about solving a particular legal problem. And in many ways, as I see it, this is a more acute refinement, which is already necessary in an area and in an era of specialization. You need to know what else is within the parameters of the problem so as to ensure that you get the correct advice in respect of the entire problem. Thirdly, and this will be obvious from what I have already said, it's essential that students complete their legal studies having developed their ability to manage themselves and have a sense of ethics and professional responsibility. It is suggested in law schools in Australia that making legal clinics providing services to disadvantaged persons can be a powerful contributor to this particular aspect of a student's development. Fourthly, There is the current challenge of online learning, a necessity during a world emergency, such as we have seen in the last 2 years, and increasingly an economic convenience for universities and for many law students, which, in respect of which there is, I will say, a danger that this will take over in the future. However, I would like to suggest that it should remain a central tenet of the teaching of law that law regulates how society functions and that society is comprised of people. I suggest that it will be all too easy in a technological world, and particularly for those whose world is transactional, for people to be forgotten. Metrics will become the determinant of success rather than the sense of fairness that an individual, or indeed individuals within corporations, should have after an engagement with the legal system. Students must have the opportunity to engage with each other and with professors on campus for the vital exchange of ideas which are part of the development of critical thinking. And they need to learn about each other as human beings. The concept of global judging raises different questions. What do we mean by it? Are we looking for a strengthening of extraterritorial recognition of the law and the decisions of other jurisdictions? Or should we be talking about international courts? And if so, in what disciplines? Some areas are obvious and are already with us. Commercial disputes are the most obvious. Singapore's International Commercial Court provides litigants the option of having their disputes adjudicated by a panel of experienced judges from Singapore and other international judges from both civil and common law jurisdictions as an alternative to international arbitration. Similar courts exist in Qatar, China, and Dubai. But what about global judging in other areas? Let's think about this for a moment. Criminal law. Is there a place for global judging in criminal law? I'm not talking about the International Criminal Court, which deals with international and crimes against humanity. I'm talking about those areas where the crime has occurred and fairly common scenario where the criminal flees the jurisdiction. Rather than trying to bring the criminal back into the jurisdiction, what about bypassing the expensive extradition proceedings that need to occur and perhaps link with international law enforcement in areas such as drug running, slavery, cartel operations, and other international white-collar crime? Perhaps there is a place for a criminal court of this type which truly engages in global judging to bring the criminal to justice. Assuming that global judging is a topic worthy of pursuit and indeed implementation, there's also a question as to what would be the best model for global judging. Is it the discrete and organic emergence of such courts, which may have the benefit of being more responsive to the specific conditions of a dispute? Alternatively, it may be that the institutionalization of such courts would lead to their formation on a larger scale, making them more accessible across the world. All I can say is the next 3 days will be fascinating. And we often say that the future is with the younger generation, but I think this conference will bring home to all of us that it's the future of that generation which is in our hands. Thank you.
Much gratitude, Honorable Ms. Beazley, for your valuable insights and nuggets of information. Thank you for emphasizing the need to blend not only technical expertise, but also ethical grounding in legal education. We are indeed thankful to you for taking the time to be with us in this summit today. Moving on, I would now request the Registrar of OP Jindal Global University, Professor Sridhar Patnaik, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Tanushree Sharma. Honorable Ms. Justice Gita Mittal, former Chief Justice High Court of Jammu and Kashmir, Honorable Her Excellency Ms. Margaret Beazley, former President, New South Wales Court of Appeal and Governor of New South Wales, Australia, Professor Dr. Raj Kumar, the founding Dean of Jindal Global Law School and founding Vice Chancellor, OP Jindal Global University, Professor Dr. S.G. Sreejith, Executive Dean, Jindal Global Law School of the OP Jindal Global University, and my dear colleague, Professor Dr. Tanushree Sharma, Senior Additional Registrar, OP Jindal Global University. Good morning, everyone, and greetings to everyone who have joined us this morning from around the world. It's my privilege, indeed, to propose a vote of thanks on this special and significant occasion. We are grateful to Honorable Ms. Justice Gita Mittal, the former Chief Justice, High Court of Jammu and Kashmir, for accepting our invitation to be the guest of honor and for addressing the audience this morning and all the participants from around the world. Madam, your presence is a clear affirmation of your commitment towards the progressive need for a set of techniques and heuristics in contributing to global legal studies. We are delighted to listen to your inspirational ideas on how to bridge the gap in curriculum, content, methodology, faculty development, as well as institutional culture to address the concerns of globalization and its implications for legal education. We extend our sincere thanks to Honorable Ms. Justice Gita Mittal for gracing the occasion. We also take this opportunity to extend our gratitude to Honorable Her Excellency Margaret Beazley, the former President, New South Wales Court of Appeal and Governor of New South Wales, Australia, for gracing the occasion as the guest of honor and for delivering the keynote address with an emphasis on the importance of basic legal principles, ethical grounding, multidisciplinary skills, and the composite nature of law as an important contributor to students' learning of law and legal studies. We are indeed encouraged by your views on global legal education, and your visionary address has set the agenda for the deliberations for the next 3 days. We sincerely thank Her Excellency, Ms. Margaret Beazley, for gracing the occasion. We wish to sincerely thank our Honorable Chancellor, Shri Naveen Jindal, for his constant support to the university that has today acquired a well-deserving reputation globally. OP Jindal Global University stands as a testament to values espoused by Shri OP Jindal, who always believed that education, access, and opportunities could change the world, and that students go on to become change makers, a cause that is always championed by the Chancellor. I take this opportunity to wholeheartedly thank our distinguished founding Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Raj Kumar, for his singular dedication and commitment in steering the university's efforts towards achieving academic excellence and for convening the summit on a theme that resonates with the challenges and opportunities in legal education ecosystem at the national and international levels. I would also like to thank my dear colleagues, Professor Dr. S.G. Sreejith, Executive Dean of the Jindal Global Law School, and all his team members for introducing us the theme of the summit and also for providing us with the conceptual framework for the summit. I'm also grateful to the members of the Vice Chancellor's office that includes Mr. Abhinav Madan, Ms. Neha Gupta, Mr. Ankit Tyagi, and Mr. Karan Anand for their valuable contributions and tireless efforts, along with the communications and the information technology team in organizing the Global Law School Summit. We wholeheartedly acknowledge the efforts of Team OP Jindal Global University. We also wish to thank all our national and international distinguished speakers for collaborating with us and for agreeing to participate in the Global Law School Summit. I might have missed few other individuals who have supported us in this endeavor. In all earnest, I wish to be forgiven for not specifically expressing our gratitude. We wholeheartedly acknowledge the efforts of everyone in successfully organizing the Global Law School Summit. It's a great beginning, and thank you all once again.